Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So hello again. Nice to be with you. All your little faces on my screen. Here in Tisarana, it's a perfect morning. You might have seen on the news that there are some terrible fires and heat in the West Coast, but I'm 3,000 kilometers from that. Someone sent me an email from New Zealand concerned that we're suffering from some great heat, and they don't realize that Canada is 5,000 kilometers wide. So we're okay. In fact, it's a perfect summer. It's just beautiful, very, very beautiful. So the retreat has started, and all of you are trying to figure out how to do a Zoom retreat when you don't have the structure of a Sangha with you. And this is, I think, a very important experience, so you get more confidence in practicing on your own, especially doing more than just, say, a half-hour sitting a day. To be able to pick up some time like a one prop or a retreat and cultivate the capacity to do a lot of formal practice is very much the forest tradition, because in those times where you can do formal practice, and by formal practice I mean sitting and walking and lying and actually dedicating the time to that rather than just mindfulness practice, which is all the time. Formal practice gives you a chance to explore the mind in ways that it's more difficult when you're preoccupied with the concerns of life. And also that sustained quality of attention and intention for long periods of time, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, creates tremendous energy for knowing, for understanding, because you're constantly intending to awaken to the way things are, without all the usual distractions. And that pays dividends throughout the day and throughout your life. And that's very much what a retreat's about. It's very much what our forest tradition is about. So say we have, like here at the monastery, we call it Bhavana Week coming up tomorrow. And then we put away the work projects and we do a 3-hour meditation in the afternoon. We have a morning meditation, we have an evening meditation. Well, obviously we're monks and we have the time to do that. And that's sort of our duty and our privilege to be able to do that. And you learn a lot. So again, hats off to the organizers of this retreat, but now it's really up to you to try to create the self-motivation to put away the distractions, the endless pull of the internet or whatever duties you have, but in a way that doesn't offend your family. You don't want to be some kind of creepy meditator that is rude to your family. Leave me alone, I'm meditating, I'm doing metta bhavana. That's not a good idea. So it's not like excluding things, but just honoring it's honoring presence rather than the objects in presence. It's honoring awareness rather than the objects in awareness. It's honoring consciousness rather than all the things that our attention goes to. And our attention needs to go to things, needs to go to responsibilities, and we need to take care of our loved ones and all the things we're involved as social beings. But is that all there is? Is there just social interaction, or is there a domain and a place or a way of being which is not dependent on experience, and yet can participate in experience? Is there a place of peace in the heart? Is there a place of compassion? And there is. And this is the homage to the Buddha and the homage to all our teachers, whatever tradition we have. So, keep that in mind during this retreat. It's a very valuable time. So if you get bored and you want to do something else, it's better to observe boredom as an object rather than become the person that's distracted, obviously. And that's an interesting experience of being bored or disinterested, because in that experience of being bored or disinterested, then craving arises and it seeks some object of interest. And that's not wrong. And the object of interest needn't be immoral. You can be doing something quite good. But then the habit of mind is also when the mind's beginning to enter into peace, it needs an object. And sometimes those places of boredom, they can even feel depressing. But if you don't go to thought, you just stay with the mood of the mind. What is this mood like? Then you're enhancing awareness. You're taking reference with consciousness. You're not going out into the world of sense, and your mind drops into peace. It's very much that kind of experience. You drop into peace. You let go into peace. You'll find that. So whatever's happening, again, don't judge the quality of the mood, but know the mood is something that's changing. So I've been suggesting the word trust as a way of contemplating Nirodha. So Nirodha, as you know, in the Third Noble Truth, is a cessation of craving, which is synonymous with Nibbana, which is synonymous with enlightenment, which is synonymous with peace. And then thinking about, well, what might be the ways that I can touch non-desire. And so I suggested yesterday, or for you this morning maybe, what is trust? What does that actually feel like to trust? And then you'll say, well, trust in what? Well, before you say trust in what? Well, what does it actually feel like just to sit here and just trust this moment as it is? And that makes me very peaceful. Because why? Because I'm not searching for another experience, and I'm not rejecting this experience. So conjoined with trust, I would say, is loving kindness, not like romantic love, which has an emotional power to it, emotional high to it, but simply a very, very accepting and open sense of presence. So that to me would be the territory of trust. And I'm thinking further, what is trust also related to? It's related to confidence. Like when you're confident about something, then you can trust it. So how would what's the pathways of confidence in the spiritual life? What is confidence about? What seems to me, when Luang Por Sumedho says to me, trust in awareness, if I don't understand that, then I need to have the faith to try that. If I understand it, if I've practiced enough, I get it. I know what he's pointing to, then there's no problem. I am reminded of something I already know. But if I don't understand something, right, and I hear a teacher that I respect, then that to me is faith. It's like, I don't know quite what you're talking about. I'm not quite sure why you say that, but I like where you're at. I like the way you live your life. I like you. And certainly we had that with Luang Por Sumedho, with Luang Por Cha, and Luang Por Sumedho, obviously, but with Luang Por Cha, like, you just love the man. He's just such a beautiful being, powerful, compassionate, fearless, humorous, just lovely. So whatever Luang Por Cha would say, I'd say, okay, yeah, I'll give that a go. And that's to me a faith which is not belief. You could say there's a belief in there. I believe in Luang. You could say that, but it was more like, I'll give this a go because I love this man, I respect this man, and he's got what I want. Basically, I want some of his action. And so if Luang said to me, well, you know, you haven't changed your mind and you're expecting to be a Buddha tomorrow, you better get realistic. And, you know, maybe in 5 years' time, you're going to be a bit more peaceful. Now, that was not very inspiring, and yet it was true. So it was inspiring in some sense. Well, it was sobering. It was sobering and gave me determination. All right. If the man says, I just got to do this, I'll do it. And certainly my mind, you know, was just a mess when I was a young monk because I'd never trained it. I wasn't a bad person, but I never trained it. So what is faith in this sense? It's the faith to try something out, and you have to try it for a while before it will bring you to confidence, don't you? You can't just try. Well, that didn't work because I did it for 2 hours, and that's not going to get, you know, that's not going to really give you much insight into it. So then you come to the teachings. Then the Buddha suggests that, or Luang Por suggests, look at life's experience as uncertain, as anicca. Now that doesn't seem like much. That doesn't seem like much, but if I pick that up as a contemplative theme, day in and day out, hour by hour, right? So it's not just like a belief or an opinion. A belief would be that life changes. Well, obviously it changes. Seasons change. That's not the Buddhist teaching on anicca. That's just common sense. So what is when the Buddha says anicca dukkha anatta, that which has a nature to arise has a nature to cease? Well, you need the faith to start to implement that perception into your all-day life, into your constant life, into your constant experience. So that faith and sense of the teacher's correctness is the beginning of right understanding. And then that leads to thinking in that way, right thought, sammasanka, intending in that way. Now you have to do that. You have to keep bringing that up into mind. So then let's say some emotion comes up and you get caught into it and you believe in it. Obviously, we've lost the perception of anicca and we've taken up the perception of self. You're wrong, you shouldn't be that way. I'm wrong, I shouldn't be that way. And so on and so forth. But if you're constantly referring to the Dhamma and you're constantly making that conscious, that which began ends. This will change. I know that was the insight that my mother picked up from Buddhism. She said, the one thing I've learned from you is that if it comes, it goes. And that was so lovely to hear her say that. If it comes, it goes. It was so simple. And yet it served her really very, very well. Served her very well. And so that's the idea of reflection as opposed to belief or disbelief, say. And then, so then that, if you employ that from your teachers and you start to do it, you see that's true. It does work that way. And that's insight, right? It's no longer just knowledge or affirmation of something that seems reasonable. It's insight. It's your insight. It's not my insight. And because it's your insight, that's right understanding deepened. You come from a sense of like scholarship, and then you use that scholarship, patipata, practice, and then, yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. That's true. And so then right understanding deepens into confidence. And then confidence gives you trust. You can see how it works, doesn't it? Right? And the more you pick up the teaching in that way, the more the less you have to actually analyze and think about it, the more you just plug into just simple words like trust, simple ideas like this is changing, because now your heart is imbued with insight, with understanding. So the teachings are quite vast. There's so many structures, but I would say the self-discipline of the contemplative is the picking up of just one or two themes, but then working with it a lot. So I've been using this word trust the past few weeks and just seeing what does that do to my mind. And then it's very helpful kind of word, because I bring it into consciousness, just trust. And then I can see the tendency to look for something, or try to get something, or try to understand something. And the mind is kind of reaching forward into the future, looking for an experience or resisting an experience. But so the idea of putting that word in is then a reflective idea. And then I watch, and I see, oh, that's tanha, that's craving. That's not trust. That's resistance. That's not trust. That's not wanting. That's not metta. And because I see the arising of these different factors come up, because they're known as objects rather than me being the subject, they keep falling away. So then the word trust helps in letting go. We have that word letting go, and some people like letting be, and then so letting go can sound like you have to get rid of something. But if you're trusting in awareness, you're not trying to get rid of anything. You're witnessing it as it is, and then you can see that like the language of like the parami of patience, right? That fits in with trust, because if I like doubt is one of the moods of the mind that most meditators get caught up with. Doubt is thought, doubt is analytical, doubt is uncomfortable. It's much more comfortable to be confident, isn't it? When I feel confident, I feel strong, and so on. So when doubt arises, if you are using anicca as a perception, that which has a nature to arise has a nature to cease. If you're staying with that perception, then doubt is an object, which stays as an object, endures for a while, and then ceases. But if you don't see that, then what happens is you trust in the doubt, and you start thinking doubting thoughts. And that's not wrong, and doubt is important. But in meditation, that's one of the common questions I'm always getting. And the mind just goes off into some kind of speculative doubting. But if you have this sense of just trust and awareness, and doubt comes up into the mind as a, should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? And you just know doubt is doubt, and it ceases, your mind is liberated from the need for thought, because you don't have to think about it. Whereas if you're always trying to solve a problem or get a result, and you're always thinking about it, you're always caught in thought. So then you start to have confidence around doubt. You just see doubt as something that begins and ends. And so the confidence and trust and sati sampajanya all become one thing. It's just this sense of open awareness, knowing things coming and going. And where we get caught up is where we really need to contemplate. So where do we get caught up is when the sense of self comes up strong, doesn't it? The sense of me and my problems, and you, and you're right and I'm wrong, and my fears and anxieties. And so our task, I would say, is no longer to trust the self mind, because that's what we tend to trust, the ego mind, don't we? The thinking mind, who I am and what I should be. And that trusting that is a disaster. It really is. And trusting that that's an object, knowing that that's an object, is coming back into the peace of the mind. So again, I would ask you, what in this day of meditation, And tomorrow's meditation, what did you trust in? What did you trust in the anxious thoughts you have about your grandchildren? Did you trust in the self-judgments that you had about your meditation? Did you trust in, complaining that you haven't got the vaccines yet? Did you trust that, and so on and so forth? What did you actually trust in? You can notice, well, I trusted in complaining about the government because they're so corrupt, say. That's a good one to trust in. Many governments are corrupt. But what does it take you to? It takes you to that. So that's what we call papancha. Papancha is the entire prungdang. You proliferate on these ideas. And that to me is like, why do I want to go there? Because of habit, because I think it's true. And so then the mind dwells in the territories of self and desire, in the territories of suffering through thought. If you try to get rid of thought, that won't work either. But if you start to witness, well, this is something that begins and ends, meine, uncertain. I find now that we get letters from people who want to come and stay with us, and they have very strong views about vaccines and about COVID tests and what we should do and shouldn't do. And what it's very obvious now how opinionated people are. Because they're, so hyper informed about everything, about what is true and what is not true politically, medically, this works, that doesn't work. Hyper informed. And I'm true, I'm right, because I read it. And my friend read it too, and we all agree. I'm right. And Luang Por's teaching of uncertainty, who's reflecting on that? It's uncertain. So the attachment to views that we have is not wrong. You need some viewpoints, obviously, but that sense of ego, the sense of self-importance, and whatever, that kind of sense of strong ego around the viewpoint is suffering, because it's not the peace of the mind, it's not the emptiness of the mind, it's not compassion. So as you negotiate this modern age of so many views and opinions, so many websites about all the important information, some things you need for sure. But if you want to realize the peace of the heart, you have to start letting go of attachment to views and opinions, Detupadana, which is a great problem in human society and human heart. Notice that like if I look at the rock here, it's a beautiful rock. We have a kind of a Zen garden here, and I make no comment about it, and I trust in awareness, that immediately brings me to the peace of the mind. Because the peace of the mind is always there. It's not tomorrow. It's just I'm not noticing it because I'm preoccupied with thought, with the objects of experience. If I can just lay that down for a second and just listen to the sound of the birds, look at the Buddha Rupa. Don't I instantly touch silence? Don't I instantly notice the peace of the mind? Yes, because it's always there. It's not conditioned by sense experience. Now, if you're trying to find peace of the mind as an object, then what you'll be doing is you're trying to get rid of whatever objects are in your mind, like thought. So it's not something you find, it's something you remember. You recollect, you notice, oh yeah, there's silence. And that's when you start to really have faith and then confidence in Luang Por's suggestion, trust and awareness. So even if the question comes up, well, what does he mean by trusting in awareness? Trust that. Just know that you don't know. Just that. If you begin with very simple like sense experiences, like sound, in a simple environment, room, in a simple situation where there are no distractions, and you begin with just sound or the feeling of your breath, and you give up trying to get anything from meditation, from trying to experience some high state of absorption, or to realize sotapatti, or to become an arahant, and all these different linguistic traps that we have in Theravada Buddhism. You give all that up and you surrender and trust and just listening. What happens? Does not the mind become, notice the peace of the mind? Isn't it there? Isn't it always there? And then the mind starts to think, doesn't it? Starts to create ideas. It has the past and the future. Then yesterday's meditation or this morning's meditation for you in Thailand and so on, I suggest that moment where you notice the thinking mind, what do you do? Do you trust in awareness in that moment? Or do you trust in the desire to get rid of thought? Do you trust in awareness that you know now there is thinking? Or do you analyze, why am I thinking so much? Do you trust in staying with awareness? Or do you try to do some kind of activity to get rid of thought? If you trust in awareness, then that opens you to silence and peace. If you trust in getting rid of something, that's trust, non-desire, metta bhavana, patience, they're all leading to one thing. We have different ways of pointing to the same territory, to the same kind of situation. So you're in Asia, you're going into your evening, you'll be going to sleep and so on. When you, if you have, like a lot of us have a very strong tendency towards self-disparagement, because at least I do. and I've noticed maybe that's the kind of people I attract, I'm not sure. Anyway, I don't think a narcissist would be doing this retreat, right? It's not something a narcissist does, because it takes some self-critical analysis to understand your mind. But a critical analysis of how things work is different than self-disparagement of who you are and what your meditation is about. So you want to differentiate between that. I can see that, yeah, okay, I'm sleepy. What can I do to make my mind more bright? Or I'm distracted. What could I do to compose my mind? But just to criticize that, to be critical of that, won't work. It won't work really well. So it's a good thing to actually review the goodness of your life. Now that sounds like conceited. Oh, you know, I'm a meditator. I've been a bhikkhu for so long and so on. But it's true. You know, the good things of your life are true. And so often we don't make conscious the goodness of our lives. You know, in Sri Lanka, they have a tradition. I don't know if it's still alive these days, how much it's used in modern society, but they have a tradition called a ping pota. And a ping pota, ping is the same as punya, is the same as boon. So it's interesting that the Pali word punya means merit, meritorious action, goodness. In the Thai language, it became boon. And in the Sri Lankan language, it became ping. History, language, anyway. Punya. And so ping po. So apparently, when in the olden days, I don't know if this is true now, when children went to school, they were given a little book, and then the teacher would ask them, so what good thing did you do at home today? Oh, I helped mom with the dishes. Okay, you write that down in your ping pota. I helped mom with the dishes, 24th of September, whatever the date is. And then each day, the child writes in the book, I did this good thing, I did this good thing, I did this good thing. And that's not an egotistical suggestion. It's no, that's a good thing to do. And apparently, then if a person's kind of likes this and is diligent, they keep their pingpota going for their whole life. And then when they're dying, someone reads their pingpota for them. Isn't that sweet? Again, I don't know if this, I've never seen it happen. I'm just told that this was an ancient tradition. And it's good to keep your own pingpota, right? Because sometimes, your meditation can be just horrible. You can be so sleepy, your head's hitting the table, and then you eat too much cake or whatever horrible thing you've done, and you can get very, very self-critical around minutiae, around things which actually aren't that important. So, and that's the critical mind, which is not known as an object, where you become the subject. And that's a very insidious kind of suffering that we can have. So to actually just say, yeah, but actually I'm keeping the precepts and I am giving it a go. I know my meditation was total washout and I know it looked pathetic, but I did try. And, I did give it a go. And that language it's not self-congratulatory. It's just putting another language in your mind from the language of self-disparagement. Because sometimes, even though we say just trust and awareness, the language that we trust, the language of resentment, so the language of self-disparagement, or the language of anxiety, this is language, this is self, this is narrative, this is story, this is rebirth. Isn't that what rebirth is about? We get reborn into these habits, and just to put another perspective onto it, another dimension onto it, is the goodness of your life. So do you remember that all of you here are good folk? I know you know that, but do you say that to yourself? And I don't want to be smarmy about it, but it is true. We're all trying our very best to be good human beings on this difficult thing called Mother Earth and these difficult times. So if you begin your meditation with kindness to yourself, right? And as I was saying in one of, I think, the Singapore talks, when a mother, if a child is not touched, a baby, an infant, it's fed and if it's even given human touch, it will die because it needs love. So we need to be loved, and so do you how do you do that to yourself? It's a kind of weird idea. I love myself. Oh, I love you, Viradhammo. Oh, you're a good boy. You're a good boy. So it can sound terribly smarmy and silly, but isn't it true that when someone says to you, I love you, I care for you, I mean, it's just the greatest feeling, isn't it? Oh, really? Me? Whoa. And so how do you bring that attitude into this being here, this being sitting here? I'm not quite sure of the language because it's hard for me to say it without sounding smarmy. But then I'm a guy, and guys, we're tough and all that kind of stuff. But it is true. It is true, isn't it? So how do you get that meditation is a loving experience or a loving attitude or an inclination towards self, towards being kind to yourself? It's simple like that, without it becoming a kind of new age mantra. I'm the most wonderful and most creative person on the planet, and all my everything I say is the most beautiful and significant and wonderful, and I have got a nice nose too. It's not about that, but there is something in that, isn't there? There is something in that. So just to bring up those ideas, not that I have a technique around it, that would contrast, hopefully, that would contrast the language of self-disparagement. right? And this is when we do metta bhavana, we often say you have compassion for this being, for this body, for myself. And so when you hear the language of aversion to yourself, hear it as an object rather than believing it as the subject, then it has no power. But it has power because of past tendencies. So if you live in, most of us live in very intellectual realms. We do a lot of thinking. We do a lot of analysis. We look at computers and look at problem solving. So much of our inner workings are critical. And it has to be, because this is how you make your bread. So if you're an accountant, or you work in a law office, or wherever, your critical mind is, or you're a scholar, or whatever it is, your critical mind is highly developed, isn't it? And if you've got a university degree and you've read lots of books, and so the critical mind gets cultivated a lot, gets a lot of work out. And it needs to, if you're doing problem solving, and you have accounts that have to balance and so on and so forth, you need to have a good critical factor. You need to be really sharp in those things. But then what happens is, of course, the momentum of the critical faculty enters into areas that it's not really helpful. So it's critical of others. You did it again. You did it again. Or it's critical of yourself. You did it again. You did it again. And the kind of inner tyrant begins to call the shots. And that's sad. That's sad. But you can see where it would come from. It would come from a critical faculty being highly evolved and then dominating stream of consciousness, because it's a habit. So these practices of trust and loving kindness and mudita, and these different ways that we talk about it, are terribly important for balancing the critical faculty, balancing the thinking mind. And then if we have that, we have the critical faculty which sees dharma, then it becomes panya rather than dosa. Panya is the critical faculty used to gain insight, as opposed to aversion. And anytime that we can enter into silence by listening to sound and just listening, we enter into the space of balance, and then we can see, is this aversion? And we can say, that which has a nature to arise has a nature to cease. May I be free from suffering? Right? Rather than going critical again, which is just critical again. So just a simple language like, may I be free from suffering? May I be free from fear is very powerful if you keep enunciating, if you keep bringing up into consciousness. So I think that's plenty of things to contemplate, and I'll end the talk there. There we go. All is clear. All is good. So maybe I'll start. I guess we're sort of here, not here. So the first question from Lee is, can the four Brahma Viharas arise naturally when there is limitless expansion of awareness? I would say yes. I would say that that's the natural way of the heart when the mind is not caught by greed, hatred, and delusion. And how it would arise, for example, let's say I'm sitting here and someone's outside and they maybe trip and fall. And because I'm not preoccupied with whatever, and I notice them, then the natural response would be compassion. How can I help them? or if I noticed maybe one of the monks was having, obviously enjoying the meditation and very happy in the meditation, and then I noticed that, then that would be mudita. Oh yeah, good on you. And then just the general, like being here in this room and with friends, and then there's only one person here, by the way, right now. He's over there. But last night there were more people. So just a kind of general, oh, yeah, you're my friends. Really nice to be with you. Whereas if I was really anxious about giving a talk, what am I going to say? No, Yongpung won't like me if I don't give the right talk, or I'm really, really anxious. Then, of course, there wouldn't be space to notice my Kalyanamitta. There wouldn't be space for metta, right? Upekkha is the interesting one, equanimity. And I've been talking a lot with Amar Siri about upekkha. In English, equanimity can sound cold or cool, but I would say it's a loving peacefulness with the way things are. And like if I'm sitting here now and the internet goes down and I want to continue the retreat, the internet collapses, then upekkha would be a kind of loving presence towards this disaster or towards this failure or to this negativity, or the other way around. If some great good fortune came to us, upekkha would be a kind of loving appreciation of that. So I think that they are the natural ways of the emotional heart. Sometimes emotions are they in English, are they sometimes always negative? I don't think so. But I think when the ego is not functioning, when the sense of self isn't, when the mind isn't preoccupied with objects, it has this tremendous capacity. It's always there. And what we do is we touch it deliberately, because that brings us to the state of awareness, compassion to awareness. Dear Luang Paul, thank you for your time. A spiritual teacher and student relationship is intimate in terms of being open and honest. What would be skillful means to reduce attachment to a spiritual teacher, especially at times where gratitude to the teacher may be confused with romantic love? Well, the highest, the teacher's responsibility is the highest responsibility. And the teacher has to, first of all, realize that the teacher-student relationship is a celibate relationship. Otherwise, it's not a teacher-student relationship. Then it's a relationship. and so, at least in Theravada Buddhism, from my experience as a monk, but also from, like I think, some of the IMS, Sila, I think that they say that a teacher, their lay teachers, cannot go into a romantic relationship with a student until 2 years after a retreat. So if a student did a retreat with a teacher, they're not allowed to have a romantic relationship for 2 years. So they've obviously worked out some kind of Vinaya protocols for that. A powerful relationship of teacher to student. So for us as monks, and I think for any teacher who understands that the power of that relationship, first and foremost, is celibacy, and then the teacher's responsibility, and it is the teacher's responsibility here, because the teacher is the teacher's leading. It's like a parent is leading. It's a parent's responsibility, and that if romantic love begins to manifest in either party, the teacher has to handle it skillfully, and that really depends on the situation. But romantic and to differentiate between romantic love and the love of metta bhavana is. Obviously, metta bhavana is going to be mixed up with the feelings of romantic love, but romantic love wants intimacy. and it wants a kind of personal relationship. Whereas metta bhavana isn't asking for intimacy. It's not demanding that. It has no jealousy in it. It has no possessiveness in it. And those aspects need to be noticed. And how you negotiate that really, really depends on the situation. But it's the teacher's responsibility. So if the student expresses romantic love to the teacher has to just say, no, that just leads to attachment. If the teacher decides, okay, I want a romantic relationship with the student, then the teacher has to give up the teacher's role, because the teacher-student relationship is the power relationship is so off. And the teacher has so much power compared to the student. Right? If there aren't protocols to protect the student, it can be very disastrous, which we've seen a lot in North America. So to protect both the teacher and the student, the teacher-student relationship should be in a larger social context. So as bhikkhus, we're as an individual teacher, I'm in the larger social context of the Sangha, in a larger social context of a history of how bhikkhus behave towards students. And then I have I have peers, and I have junior monks, and I have senior monks who are part of my social structure. And so if I start to feel a romantic attraction to a student, all my peers are helping me. Be careful, don't, that's not what you do. That's not where you go. And if the student is having, a romantic attraction to a teacher, then the teacher and the community say, no, that's not what we do. That's attachment. So in terms of say the 8 precepts, one of the in the brahmacharya precept, or no, in the 5 precepts actually, in the 5 precepts, the romantic relationship is out of bounds if someone's in a monastery, because when they come to the monastery, their aspiration is transcendence rather than personal intimacy. So it's wrong for someone to seek a romantic relationship in a monastery. I'm sure it happens, because I'm sure if you're, but that's real life. But that would be against the 3rd precept. So it wouldn't just be about celibacy. It would be about protection. So someone who is a novice or is betrothed or is underage, all of that are not territory to develop a romantic relationship. So there's a lot in the structures of Theravada Buddhism to protect from that. It's a very powerful thing. Romantic love is a very, very powerful thing, but it's not transcendent because it's so dependent on personality. So if that's happening between a teacher and a student, then how can you negotiate it without hurting anyone and take it to transcendence? Maybe it's not possible, and then the teacher has to say, no, I think you need another teacher. That's quite often the best policy, because this is just getting too confused. This is getting too confused. And certainly in North America, there have been incidences of the misuse of that in the most horrible ways, in the most horrible and destructive ways. So it's dangerous territory, dangerous territory. And if like as monks, we are not allowed to be with women in intimate spaces alone. We need another man present. And that came about because situations, either the monastic teacher lost mindfulness, the student lost mindfulness, or the whole society started to feel suspicious. This is wrong. Why is this teacher and this disciple, why are they always together? Why are they always intimate? It's not what you do. Not what you do. So it's a territory which you got to be very, very careful of. And so like romantic love, when it's not, what happens to romantic love when it's not pursued? Well, it's a feeling of desire which isn't fulfilled. It's a powerful feeling of desire. And what happens if you don't pursue the object of the romantic love? Well, you have to witness it. You have to witness unfulfilled desire. And what happens if you witness unfulfilled desire? It takes a lot of patience. And if you witness it, and you watch it, you watch it, you watch it, you watch it, it might last a long time and be very powerful and very tempting. But then what you're doing is you're strengthening the witnessing consciousness rather than the romantic love aspect of your life. Now, romantic love is suitable when both the man, both partners are compatible and they want to develop a relationship and they want to develop family and so on. So that's fine. And that's beautiful. That's very, very beautiful. But in a teacher-student relationship, the person who's feeling romantic love, be it the student or the teacher, their job on a personal level would be to notice the feelings of attraction, romantic love, and witness them as an object and not pursue them in language or in visual contact or any kind of intimacy. And in the bearing witness to that, what happens? Witnessing consciousness gets very strong. But even that is anicca dukkha anatta. Even that I can bear with. And as the romantic attraction wanes and begins to cease, there's a tremendous strength in the heart, because what's been encouraged is awareness rather than the attraction and the excitement and all the rest of it that comes, and the intimacy and the warmth and the tenderness and all that's there. But that's been renounced and given up, but not as a rejection, but more because one is interested in the transcendent. And the transcendent is metta is not romantic love. In romantic love, you'll have metta bhavana, but the metta does not require intimacy. It doesn't feel jealousy. It doesn't feel possessiveness. It's not that kind of thing. So it's a dangerous territory. You've got to be very careful. Lompa, do you have an image of the Savasana sleeping pose that you mentioned in the morning? You mentioned that I could put pillows below my knees. I was looking online but could not find an image that fit your description. Well, the image that she gave was a joke. And it was like, well, I guess I'll put it up, but it's just the most fantastic image. It's an image of a seal. And it's lying in a pool of water, and its flippers, its flippers are like this. It's the coolest picture of Sarah, but it's a joke. So I'll send it and we can post it. It's just really funny. So also I end up falling asleep when I lie in bed. To me, sleeping is a luxurious comfort I enjoy, in which I rest after a full day of activities. If you could please demonstrate or share an image of how it could be done. I won't do it for you. It's like, Savasana. Well, Savasana is corpse posture in yoga. So you lay out, your hands are on the mattress, or your hands can be down on the knees. So you got on television, right? You can't see my hands. So your hands are laid out, right? Savasana. Look up Savasana. In a yoga posture, the corpse posture. And then don't do it when you're sleepy. Do it instead of your normal meditation. Do it when you have most energy. Have a cup of coffee first. Very good. Excellent kind of medicine. and then you use the pillows under your knees and just try, that's all. Just try it out. And yeah, you might fall asleep and so on, but it's like an experiment. And what happens to consciousness when I don't have to hold the body up? Can I meditate in that posture? So it's just experiment. For me, I just experimented with quite a long time before I started to teach about it. But it's a pretty valid way to practice. I use it a lot. I usually meditate for about 2 hours in the morning in doing yoga nidra. And it's very, very effective, but I'm 75, so the body's got a different energy than if you're 35, right? So it's different. So I think just try it. Just give it a go and experiment. But the real thing is not to move. That's the secret. You get comfortable and you don't move. Just don't move. And you want to move. You want each scratch lay over on your side. So if you're doing it before to fall asleep, that's not the idea. It's not to fall asleep, it's to stay awake. So like wake up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, brush your teeth and so on, go back to bed and then try it out. It's one way to go. Dear John, thank you for your compassion in guiding us. Is in awareness the same as maintaining the awareness, the knowing, be it bodily sensations, sounds, perceptions, knowing it as it is? Yeah. I'm using the same language to point to the same thing, but this language of in awareness helps me to, like, okay, so I can hear the grackles at the bird feeder now. No, I can't. And so the grackles are very kind of noisy, scratchy sound. And I can have the perception that I am here and the birds are out there. That's correct. So sound has spatial perception in it. It has a distance. It has a location, a kind of geographic location, sort of to my right behind me. So all that's the perceptual process of sound and listening. So that creates a sense of me and the birds, which is necessary. But also I can see that perception of distance, direction, volume is in awareness. And that helps me to see that the sense of me and the bird is actually an object in awareness. And that helps me in perceiving anatta, not self. But that sense of me here and the birds out there is true, it's true, but there's a bigger reality to all of this, is that consciousness or awareness or knowing is a space within which the sense of perception comes and goes, distance comes and goes, sense of self comes and goes. And that's why I use that in awareness language. And so if I move from sound base to body base is very interesting, because the usual perception is I'm incarnate in this body, which to some extent is true. So I have responsibility for the body. But when I kind of just notice the body as a sense, as moving sensations and temperatures and pressures and so on, as an object in awareness, that creates the space within which the body is known as an object rather than me being the subject. And if I toggle between the two, between sound body, and this is in awareness, I really get the sense that awareness is, and consciousness or whatever, is unlimited space. And the world arises and ceases in that space. And we have that, don't we? In Theravada, we say that the world arises and ceases in this fathom-long body. We have that in our text. And then that's why I use that language for myself, because it gets me out of the sense of me listening to the sounds. That the sense of me listening to the sounds is part of just the world arising and ceasing. So it's very pragmatic. It's not, it works or it doesn't work, basically. I'm a kind of pragmatic guy in that way. But I am pointing to the same thing, to the knowing, yeah? Dear Luang, sometimes I feel discomfort of tightness between my nose and forehead during breathing meditation. Should I ignore the discomfort or focus on the discomfort as a meditation object? Kindly advise. Well, this is doubt. And this is a good example of how doubt works, because it really doesn't matter what you do. You just do something and give it a go. So you try one thing, oh, that's not effective. You try another thing, that's effective. No, it's not effective. So you have to try. So what did Yogi Berra say? What was that Yogi Berra thing? When you come to the fork in the road, take it. Edward, you'll understand that one. Anyway, it's American humor. When you come to the fork in the road, take it. So should I or shouldn't I? Just take one. Just do it. See what happens. Oh, yeah, that's not effective. But the thing about doubt, it cripples activity. Should I, shouldn't I? Should I, shouldn't I? And we don't see that the problem is actually doubt. That's the real problem. And doubt often does that. It creates a question. Should I or shouldn't I? It's not really a problem. Just try one. And then it becomes a problem I have to solve. And because it's doubt, I can never solve it. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. So you can also, in this question, you say, oh, this is doubt. This is not being sure. Doubt feels this way. Then you're really noticing the dharma of the mind, not just the body, the mind's response to this tension in the head. And then just try something. Try something really hard, or try something soft, or change the object of awareness. That's how you learn. It's very much craft work. You learn by just, okay, this is weird. Well, let's try this. Try harder. Don't try. That kind of activity. And the results are good that way, because then you see, yeah, with this, there is that kind of. But quite often the problem is not tension, it's the doubt. That's the precursor. That's the thing you have to look at first, and then just try. Lompa, I'm confused over these two terms, Dhamma Vijaya and Sati Sampajanya. So Dhamma Vijaya means investigation of truth, and Sati Sampajanya means mindfulness and clear comprehension. So the more I investigate the way things are, the more my mindfulness is imbued with insight. So Sati Sampajanya is mindfulness and insight. So say, like I was talking about self-disparagement. And if I investigate self-disparagement, I say, what is self-disparagement? What kind of language is there? And how does it feel physically? And does it create tension? That's Dhamma Vijaya. But I'm not just thinking about it. I'm creating an avenue of investigation. I'm saying I'm going to look at self-disparagement every time it arises as an object. I'm going to observe the thoughts. That's Dhamma Vijaya. And then in the observation, I see, oh, when I do, let's say, when I perceive myself to have made a mistake, what arises is self-disparagement. Oh, I see, yeah. So then sati is conjoined now with insight. Oh, yeah, I see. When this happens, that happens. That's sati sampajanya. And you can see the more I contemplate where my suffering is at, the more my mindfulness will be imbued with panya, sati sampajanya, right? Sati and panya, it'll be imbued with insight. So my understanding of fear, say, 40 years ago, was very shallow. My understanding of fear now is much deeper, and so on and so forth. And so that's the idea, that we keep establishing awareness, but as we investigate the causes of suffering and the end of suffering, that awareness, we become like the Buddha. Right? We become, when we see the Dharma, we see Buddha. When we see the Buddha, we see Dharma. Our minds become imbued with wisdom. And so when do we put these into our practice? During formal meditation and while doing daily activities? Well, it's something you're always doing, I would say. You're always investigating, aren't you? Like, you sit down and meditate, and you're looking at, well, how do I feel right now? Right? Okay, what if I try breath? I'll do some breath meditation. Now, what's the result there? Oh, okay, yeah, I'm trying too hard. It's too much effort. Okay, relax a bit. Yeah. So you're always questioning, but you're not analyzing. I would say that's a differentiation. If you're just analyzing, and you're just analyzing, you're thinking. But if you're questioning, you're observing. Say like the kind of like koans, like Japanese koans, or the Sri Ramanas, who am I? That's a very kind of questioning way of looking and observing. Who am I? So you question, but then you notice, well, who am I? What is self? And then you're silent, and you're witnessing. And you notice the silence, and you notice the witnessing. So it's not like some people just do meditation as a technique. They don't reflect. Says, okay, now I'll just count my breaths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that you do, that's sort of kindergarten practice, I would say. But after a while, like, it's just like, is this what the Buddha said, just to count your breaths for the next 70 years, 20 years? No, there must be more to this than that. And then you start to use intelligence. It's not just a technique. You're just like, well, what is suffering? What is the cause of suffering? What is the end of suffering? And then you observe suffering as it arises. Oh, yeah, I feel uptight. Why is that uptight? Oh, I don't want this person to be that way. Oh, what do I need to let go of? Oh, yeah, I need to let go of my judgments. Oh, okay. Insight, questioning, insight, questioning. And that's not formal practice or informal practice. It's just the wise use of the mind, really. But in general, I would say when you're doing formal practice, learn how to compose the mind, right? So take an object of meditation, like the breath, and just make that your exercise. How do I collect and compose my mind into the present moment? Keep it really, really simple. And okay, I'll just use the in-breath, the out-breath, and I'll just learn how to compose and collect the mind. And if the mind starts to doubt, say, no, this is the craft I'm going to learn right now. And then once you've learned how to compose and collect the mind, then your mind has a lot of freedom to explore and investigate. But you need to somehow have a sense of presence and maintain sustained presence. So do that first, always do that first, or the metta bhavana, and learn how to do that, learn how to do that well. Okay, one more. Oh, there's two more. Dear Lone Paul, how can we reconcile non-becoming with setting an intention or aspiration, which I usually do? For instance, if someone asks me why I am doing a retreat, I may say to develop my practice, which is my aspiration or intention. Does this imply becoming? As in wanting to become a better practitioner or meditator? And if yes, should we do things without setting intention or aspiration, which seems a bit directionless to me, or is there a subtle difference between these two? Well, good question. Intention is not about the future, it's about now. It's not about becoming, it's about awakening. So obviously, I want to be a better person, and I want to whatever, so that's fine. Like I want to be a better craftsman. And so I go into the craft workshop, I go into the workshop, but my work is very much in the present. My focus, the way I measure things, my attention to detail is always in the present moment. And in the present moment, if I do it well, I have intentions. I know aspects of work which are sloppy in me, which don't have enough skill. I need to put more skill into it. But always the work is in the present moment. And then lo and behold, maybe in 4 years' time, I'm a slightly better craftsman and I can make better utilitarian objects. And very, very similar in terms of your intention. Your intention is certainly to become a better practitioner, to become a better person, and so on and so forth. But what you're actually doing is you're doing it in the present moment, because you only have the present moment. And the accumulation of these good actions based on good intentions creates a better practitioner, dependently originating, right? But you're never doing your work in the future. You can only do your work in the present moment. So I want to develop the capacity to calm my mind with the breath. Fine, that's a good intention. But it's, if I try to then, I'm gonna really try hard so that I can be a better guy in the future. I'm trying to become a better guy. That's tanha. That's craving. That's me. And then if I'm not, if my mind is confused, then I have to try harder. That doesn't work. But if I make the intention, okay, what does calm feel like now? What does restlessness feel like now? I keep doing that. Then the work in the present moment creates the causes and conditions for peace. So you plant the tree, the sapling, you take care of the sapling, you eventually get fruit from the tree. It's just like that. So it's not about no intention. It's about the intention being skillful in the moment. and doing skillful things in the moment. Lompo, dear Lompo, feelings of metta or kindness do not come up naturally to me when I try to recollect about the people around me, even my parents. While I do feel some form of gratitude to some people, it felt unnatural, almost like I'm forcing it. Do you have further advice on how to do metta bhavana? Well, anything that could take your mind to your heart would be good. So a cat video would be fine. I talk about cat videos because there's one lady in Ottawa, she loves cat videos and loves cats. But obviously you are where you are, right? And then you feel, this guy's talking about metta bhavana. I don't quite get it. How can I touch it? And then you look at people around you and think, I don't really feel that close to them or whatever. So that's the first thing, is just to recognize, okay, that's the way I do feel. But is there a place in your life where your heart opens? Beauty, might be nature, might be mudita when you see like a pet, some way where you can just kind of connect to life. So one of the ways you can connect to life is just with upekkha. So you just look at something and accept it as it is. It's like this. It's just like this. And so from acceptance, then you can notice aversion, say. So you accept things as they are. So I accept things as they are. And then let's say nirasa starts the lawnmower. Acceptance, acceptance, and then, what are you doing? We're doing a retreat. Shut up. Aversion arises. Right? So by establishing upekkha, or acceptance, right, then as aversion, the opposite of metta, comes into mind, I know that, aversion feels that way. Okay, this is aversion. But this is just sound. Sound is sound. And I train myself to go back to upekkha. Okay? So then maybe I'm with my relatives and I think, may they be well. Actually, no. Actually, I wish they would leave my life. Or some such embarrassing thought comes into your mind. And then if you're practicing acceptance, and this is what annoyance feels like. Or this is what dislike feels like. And there's the chance that the dislike will go away. So now you're using of the Brahma Viharas, you're using upekkha more than metta, which is fine. And then other aspects, and that use of upekkha might be more skillful for you than the use of metta bhavana for me. Both, all of them are good in that way. So you start to see, I just accept the feeling now, rather than think you have to have metta bhavana, although that might sound interesting, and just let it be that way, because then there's non-desire, and then you can see, so start with something neutral like sound. It's just this way, and watch the mind create some negativity, and accept that, and then you step away from it. Keep practicing upekkha. And then eventually, I think metta will naturally arise within that space. But don't think that you have to do something because you don't have it, because that can get into self-disparagement. I don't have that. Although it's a very good question, and it's a good aspiration, I would suggest start with upekkha, equanimity, peacefulness. So peaceful coexistence with the nature, and then peaceful coexistence with your own negativity, if it's there. This is a feeling of aversion or annoyance or distrust or whatever it is. Because a lot of this might be historical. You might have a lot of historical karma of interactions which were unkind towards you. And so you've got ways of protecting yourself which are valid. Now, it's all valid in that way. But you can always begin with that. Begin with that way. Okay, so such are the questions. I think we can close there. right? Are we doing the mettas? Yes. Shall we chant the metta, Karina metta in English? Finish with that. Venerable Amra Siri and I will do the chanting. If you want to join along, please join us. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm, and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be at ease, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born. May all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, free from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding by not holding to fixed views. The pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. All right, everyone. Thanks for your attention. And we shall see you in about 12 hours. Huh? Namaste, Savadi, bye-bye. Auf Wiedersehen. Bon nuit.